my talk's probably a little bit different today in that I'm not going to be talking about MEP. What I want to get across to you is basically some of the issues that we find repeating over and over on sites. I'm going to talk about BIM today. I'm not talking about BIM in the future, where a lot of this is starting to head. I'm not going to talk about all the glossy and the great things. I'm actually going to talk about some of the problems and why that's leading contractors such as ourselves and the other major contractors to support BIM initiatives like the AMCA one. So I'll just give you a little bit of background on Thiess to start with, and most of you know Thiess, a big company, been around a long time. Largest construction mining services company in Australia, but the bulk of that is admittedly mining and services. Our construction arm is probably the smaller arm of the group. Again, experience covers civil, mining services, industrial, tunnelling, rail building, and facilities management. We now have a dedicated facilities management arm, which we put forward on all our PPP projects. I left this slide in because this will come back. It'll be a theme that'll be repeated several times. We're a company, our market is D&C, so it's managing contractor PPP. We don't design, we manage design. Current building projects, King George Central and Queensland Tower. We've got the Townsville Hospital expansion, that was stage 1 and 2. RAF base East Sale down here, Lotus Glen Correctional Centre up in North Queensland, and Royal North Shore and Hospital in Sydney. Our early BIM experience all came through 4D modelling, as I think most contractors did. So it was used on a lot of projects, and it was used for detail construction modelling. It wasn't used for the presentation modelling to clients to win projects. It was actually used to resolve problems on site. That led to Thiess developing a in-house 4D modelling team that's still in place at this stage, and obviously generally relies on remodelling everything, so there's still a lot of lonely BIM happening out there. The first big BIM project for Thiess was obviously the ARC. The BIM coordination in this project actually encountered quite a few problems, but it did assist the ARC to be completed and exceed expectations in many areas. And it was mostly through the experience on the ARC that Thiess were convinced BIM is the future. So all parties involved in this exercise walked away with a better understanding of the potential of BIM, but also the process and the skills required. So since the completion of the ARC, Thiess Building has committed to a strategy that all future building projects will be delivered through a BIM process. And BIM capability is increasingly becoming an important criteria when we select consultants and subbies. I'll put this up because while it's not a Thiess building project, it's become a great BIM enabler for us. So we work very closely with the infrastructure guys who are working on this project. They have a dedicated BIM manager. Everyone knows about this project. It's in all sorts of problems. It wasn't set up as a BIM project, but BIM is becoming one of the tools that we're using to try and pull it out of the proverbial. So models on this site are uploaded nightly. So not weekly or fortnightly, but nightly. And that includes all the metadata for the materials takeoff is uploaded every night. Model management is run every morning. We have an enormous number of consultants in remote locations, fabricators in remote locations, and coordination is all done web-based, live on the models. And it's proving to be a great success. So a lot of problems on the site, but we're getting a lot of benefits out of it from the BIM side. Current BIM projects, or the current BIM, senior BIM project in Queensland is obviously Townsville Hospital stages 3 and 4. And this is part of the Queensland Government initiative driving into BIM. So stages 1 and 2 were let with the consultants only required to model in Revit. No real requirement for the builder to use the model. No real requirement for the consultants to coordinate in the model. And unfortunately they didn't. Stages 3 and 4, the government took it the next phase. So all consultants in Revit and coordinating in Revit and Navis, the builder in Navis and producing 4D models in Navis, and subcontractors required to deliver Revit as-builts. Now, Revit as-builts, before this BIM-MEP initiative come along, was obviously going to be a problem. We would have ended up with subcontractors in CAD duct, and then we would have sublet a package to get it remodelled in Revit at the end for the as-builts. hopefully over this 3-year duration of delivery of this project, we will actually get to use this BIM-MEPAUS initiative and get a delivery that we can actually use. But there's 5 buildings on site. The central energy facility is actually going into documentation, so it's the fast track part of the project. We're getting tremendous services coordination through the consultants at the moment who've really dug into the whole BIM exercise and adopted it and owned it. And the other buildings are probably about 40-50% of the way through design development. The big issue for us, as a contractor, there's lots and lots of definitions about what BIM is. For us, BIM is a process. It's a process combined and integrated with supporting technologies. And we all know, look, I could put lots of things up here. Correctly assembled BIM is a reliable digital 3D model. It's virtual representation. And it'll do all these sort of things. And I'll be controversial. A single BIM will not currently support all of the above and likely will not for some time. Now, some people are trying to do this at the moment. If you want to go out and buy a bespoke system or a VCO, a VELA, or this system or that system, you probably will. But on the average project, it's not going to happen just yet. So a real issue is that many stakeholders are gaining no benefit from the BIM due to the lack of understanding of basic BIM processes. BIM starts with and its success relies upon implementing strategy and process, standardised terms, definitions, information, technology backbone to enable cost-effective implementation, scalability, information reuse, ongoing decision support, and what we need and what we get is often dependent on the background who authors it. So it's the BIM execution plan is the key from a contractor's point of view to us getting anything usable out of the BIM. And it needs to, I changed it around. So we can end up with, and this is what is happening on a lot of projects at the moment, we can have the architect or principal consultant as a BIM manager, the head contractor as the BIM manager, or an independent consultant BIM manager, and they're all going to come at it from a different direction. They're all going to come at it from their own experience. The head contractor, while we might on a MC project end up as the BIM manager, we're already shackled by what the client negotiated with the consultants. And we get the consultants novated to us. They've negotiated an extremely restrictive BIM scope, and then every time we want them to do something, they put their hands up. It's not going to happen. So what we need is BIM execution plans which spell out who, what, why, when and how. Especially explain who will use the data at the various project stages and therefore how it will need to be formatted, and deliverables and responsibilities clearly defined. Plan the BIM process to support decision-making milestones. And controversial, the AIA Building Information Protocol is not a BIM plan. It gets put forward to us over and over and over. That's what the consultant has signed up on. It's a model progression specification. It's not a BIM plan. It doesn't encompass probably a third of what the responsibilities need to be. The data users are often forgotten. The head contractor, we are a data user, not a data creator. So if you haven't created the data in a format that we can use, we can't use it. The cost planner, we have cost planners learning Revit because the models aren't good enough to measure off, so they're reworking the models in order to be able to extract data. And the client owner, not all of them are really interested. We're at that point, BIM is so mature now for most of the big contractors, we're just going to use BIM. We're not worried about whether the client wants it or not, we're going to use it. And there's very few educated clients out there. We're lucky in Queensland, we have project services in Queensland government pushing it, so they're trying to understand what everyone needs to do to use it, but a lot of clients simply aren't. The biggest potential of BIM for the head contractor is the day-to-day use on site. So we're not talking about contractors going out and hire someone like me or an engineer or a computer expert and putting them in the office and going on site and training. We're talking about pushing BIM down to the site guys, so the project engineer, the on-site design coordinators or services coordinators and the foreman. These guys generally aren't computer comfortable. So we look at a brilliant product like Navisworks. It can do things 10 different ways, 15 different ways. But Navisworks has become the Microsoft Word of BIM. I train the staff in it, and I can train them to do lots of different things, and within a week they've forgotten it. They just use 3 key things out of BIM, out of Navis normally. So if you put something somewhere that you know, okay, well, I've got to do this, this, this and this, 4 steps to find it, they're never going to find it. It has to be quick to access and quick to understand. Systems and processes implemented at the design commencement determine the success of model use on site. And again, remember, the contractor is a data user, not a data creator, typically. Now, there are some contractors out there doing a bit of design and other things, but we are a data user. Right, I'll talk about 3 or 4 very, very simple things that hang us up. And a lot of you will say, well, oh, that's rubbish, this should be easy to resolve. But like I said, if the terms of reference for the consultants have been written before we come along, it's very, very hard. We go back to, we're tendering our work as managing contractor, we're tendering prelims, profit and overhead. Usually 70% of the assessment is based on cost. So who is going to go and allow to include an additional $100,000 or $200,000 for the consultants to do additional work, or who's going to allow to put a BIM expert on site full time? Nobody, if they want to win the job at this stage. Look, it will happen, but not at this stage. So, naming conventions. Establish consistent naming conventions across project teams. In many cases, the project teams start their modelling work in isolation. First federated model is not created until all team members are well entrenched in their practices, and the entrenchment is oftentimes not so much a technical issue, but an issue of habits that the individual team members have developed. And creating consistent naming conventions for model elements, sub-elements and attributes can be easily done at the beginning of a project. And we find it the single most important convention for usability of the model. Level parameters, another great one. Often due to model size and program, design reviews, clash detection, quantity extraction will be done per level. We're doing it in accordance with our critical path. We also use the model and parts of the model to produce work method statements and work packs. So we need a level parameter allocated to every model element. Now, in Revit MEP, that can be a problem with some systems families, but there's a workaround for everything with shared level parameters. Or supply search sets for your systems with your models. Don't expect the builder to work this out. Look, these are all simple things, and they just make the project go easier, faster. But it's quite incredible the amount of pushback we get. So people want an extra fee to do all of that. One model. Export and publish each element just once at each issue. So it's not about a single integrated model versus a federated model. No, a single integrated model will eventually help as we all move to the cloud. And Thiess will probably move to the cloud next year as a result of a lot of the issues we found on the decel. But it's about the data users, the contractor, the QS, the client receiving one copy of each model element at each issue when it matters. And I stress when it matters. We know at the beginning of the project, everyone's going to copy elements across from models. So ceilings are going to be in 4 different sets of models, columns are going to be here, there and everywhere. That's all right, we don't need to worry so much about schematic design, but halfway through DD, we want one copy of each element. So monitor and manage your own models to eliminate duplication of elements, and manage your federated models to eliminate duplication between disciplines. Sorry. And asset data, this is an interesting one. This is where the enthusiasm of some of our guys has become the problem. It's about populating the source models, not the federated models. So we get tools like Navisworks, Libre, Navigator, Tekla, that offer many great ways of entering data and information into models. So the unintended consequence of that practice is double ups. So we have guys on site who think, oh, well, if if the consultant's not going to do it, or the consultant's not going to do it in the next 3 months, I'll start putting door information or hardware information or other services information into the Navisworks model. But of course, they're never going to be aligned, and no one's ever going to end up with a coordinated model at the end of the day. And look, there's many situations where it's impractical and impossible to know and populate all the information in the source model, but hopefully as part of the MEP-Oz initiative, the source model is a progressive model, and we're not looking at several different models. So deliverables. So BIM's not just about the modelling software and the family development. It's a data-rich computer model that needs to be transmitted between and edited on several other programs. So I'm talking BIM now. I'm not talking BIM in 3 years, but BIM now. So we often need Revit files for records, some subcontractors, as-built. We need Navisworks files for collaboration, coordination, timelining. AutoCAD 3D files for some subcontractors, IFC files for some subcontractors and other consultants, AutoCAD 2D DWG files for Costex and some subcontractors and for as-built. DWF X models for use with Costex, PDF files as vectored and layered for Costex or rastered for record. And it's surprising how often we start a project and we start talking about the deliverables, and it's the guys on site that need this information, and they need it when they ask for it, and we end up fighting for 2 weeks with the consultants because they say, it's a BIM project, I'm just going to give you a Revit model and a PDF file. It's great, can't use them for most of the stuff we want to use on site. This is the sort of information we need as we get more sophisticated and as these models develop and the software develops. Yeah, look, 1 or 2 file formats, but this, if you are not allowing to do this sort of stuff when you as a consultant are commissioned, then you're not in the BIM world. And it needs adherence to well-structured export protocols. And I'll just go off a little tangent here and we'll talk about CAD managers. So as an architect, over the years I've worked with or hired many CAD managers. Those CAD managers are now progressing to model managers. And if you understand the different personality types, CAD managers, when CAD went mainstream 20 years ago, were very much the analyst personality type, so a lot of detail, didn't like to take the time about things, didn't like conflict, therefore weren't suitable for site generally, and not great interactors with other consultants, so they tend to work well with their peer group in the office. So they're okay. Then we have the new CAD managers, which are more the enthusiast personality type. So they're young, they're eager, they're software experts, but they're 25 to 35 and they've never been on site. Who gets sent to negotiate the BIM execution plan with the builder? These personalities. They don't know what we're talking about. So what we get is, we'll never do that, we'll never give you that, we'll never want to do that, you shouldn't have that. So what we need, I'm not saying that, so those personalities are probably the best personalities you're going to get. If you're going to send somebody to sit in on a BIM execution workshop, you need to send your site guy with them. So send them by all means, but send your site experience guy so he knows what the hell we're talking about. Right. I should have upset a third of the room. BIM-enabled IPD. I have a bit of an issue with the way some people are becoming obsessed with IPD. So IPD as a concept's been around quite a long time, and BIM is an integrated project delivery process. But a lot of people seem to be hanging out for the ultimate IPD. And but BIM is only truly successful with collaboration between all stakeholders. So it's all about collaboration. BIM is collaboration. But I have a lot of architects, friends, who will not commit to BIM or will not advance BIM until there's a share of risk and reward. Well, I have a huge issue with that. Understanding and contribute to a collaborative process is surely the all-important thing that we're trying to achieve. As BIM develops, we will team with those with experience. With IPD, we'll team with those we trust. So just because you've got BIM, if we're going IPD, we're not going to team with you, we're going to team with the guys we trust. Now, some people will say, I would say trust to me is a prerequisite for successful IPD, and some will argue it's a result. But if you have well-developed, documented, industry-aligned and collaborative BIM processes, then perhaps trust is more likely. So it's through these sort of issues that advancement of BIM collaboration requires the protocols and processes to be anticipated at the commencement of design. And to achieve this, we need industry standards for BIM that can be simply and quickly referenced, adapted and implemented by the client, the principal consultant or the head contractor. And we need those, and we need these sort of initiatives so that when the head contractor's not there, it's the client and the consultants talking, they say, well, let's implement a BIM-MEPAUS process. So at least when we come on, everyone's talking the same language. And we need that together with workflows that enable outcomes to be delivered efficiently and repetitively, all formalised in BIM execution plans with an industry-supported format. So we're not all running off and doing different things. Thiess believe industry initiatives such as the BIM-MEPAUS, together with the NatSPES, National BIM Guide project, will provide the basic templates to align understanding, remove confusion, maximise effort, promote trust, and deliver BIM-enabled integrated project delivery. Thank you.